Joining us now is celebrated author Ann Coulter. She's got many New York Times bestseller, and her upcoming book is Resistance is Futile. Ann Coulter, thank you for being with us here on the Howie Carr Show.
Anytime. Good to talk to you, Steve.
So my first question, Ann, is what the hell was Omarosa doing in the White House?
That is the question.
Well, I mean,
Trump had the decision. I guess this explains why he has some people who the same question could be asked about, Jared and Ivanka. On one hand, he could hire people who are smart and know a lot about politics and supported his agenda, but whom he's only known since he adopted that agenda when he ran for president. Or he could hire people with no experience in politics, because he's known them a long time, because, then at least he's going to get loyalty. At least he can count on them. They have his back. They may know nothing about what they're doing. There may be no wall, and the whole government may be blowing up every single day, but at least he'll have their loyalty. Nope, doesn't have their loyalty either. How about hiring smart people trying to help you? And by the way, I'm not bidding for a job. I don't want a
that's
job.
just what I was going to ask.
How about Mickey Kaus? How about Chris Kobach? What happened to Chris Kobach? Mickey Kaus, Pat Caddell. I mean, you can name all of the people who would have been so great in this White House, and we'd have a wall by now. But no, it has to be people from The Apprentice and his kids.
Yeah, and supposedly she was recording people with a pen and bringing, even bringing recording devices into SCIFs and into the Situation Room. Do you think that she could be prosecuted, or do you think it would be wise for the Trump administration to try and make something of this?
I would prefer that the Trump administration start with that professor in Berkeley committing attempted murder with that huge bike lock.
Yeah.
On video. It was, not the Berkeley police, not the, Berkeley administration that identified him, but just, some very enterprising, young computer nerds on the internet putting a bunch of pictures together, figured out who he was. And now, either charges have been dropped or he pled guilty to, crossing against the light or something, but there has been no state prosecution. Look, the Obama administration did this all the time. They had the federal indictment in Ferguson going before the grand jury decided not to indict. This is the first time I would be annoyed with Sessions for not doing anything if he doesn't go after that animal. I mean, it's really kind of stunning that no one died from that. These are these long, for those of you who are not on the internet and perhaps haven't seen the videos, but these are those bike locks that are like 8 inches long.
Solid metal. It's like one of the nightsticks that cops carry.
Yes, and he was smashing people on the head with it. Luckily, the ones he happened to hit, there were mostly men there, in whatever, I forget what the march was. I don't know, Proud Boys or something, but whatever it was. They ended up with like 27 stitches. They were knocked out. They had to be carried away to the hospital. No prosecution for that? No, this is when you need a federal government. Look, the reason the federal government has a lot of powers that we traditionally associate with the states, such as criminal law, how did all of this come about? It came about because Democrats in the South were refusing to apply the law equally when it came to black people. And that's why you ended up with all of these federal civil rights laws. So the federal government would ride into town and you would be able to get justice even if you were a black person in the South. Well, this situation is quite comparable. It doesn't come after 100 years of slavery, but in large swaths of the country, conservatives will not get justice, particularly in the era of Trump, because, screw it. Oh, you tried to kill a conservative? No problem.
And because they didn't actually enforce the law against this guy, there's no deterrent effect. And you just saw the results of that over the weekend. You get a thousand-something violent leftists rioting, basically, in Washington, D.C., and committing violence against cops, committing violence against journalists. I mean, Cal Perry from NBC, he was in Charlottesville. He was actually...
He was great. Wasn't he ABC?
Was he? I think he was NBC. I'm pretty sure Cal Perry was NBC.
Amazing.
He was attacked by left-wingers, Antifa people. And where's Jim Acosta? These people who are so worried about deplorables committing acts of violence when all they're doing is going to these rallies and teasing Jim Acosta. There's an actual act of violence against journalists, and Cal Perry was just one example of reporters having their cameras unplugged, getting shoved, having their equipment destroyed, but they're completely silent about this left-wing violence.
Well, not that guy Cal Perry. I think he's woke on the Antifa issue now.
Yes.
If it's the same one we're talking about, I was retweeting him like mad last night because I'm thinking, this is a liberal reporter, and he's not very happy at his treatment by Antifa.
I don't think he wasn't mugged by reality. He was mugged by a thug, a left-wing thug.
Well, if you'll recall, something similar happened. I think she may have deleted this tweet. I'm not sure. It doesn't matter. I got enough press. But during the original Charlottesville, that Cheryl something Stolberg, the woman who writes at the Times, she's constantly writing about abortion, she was right in the middle of it, and she tweeted out, as an observer in the middle of Charlottesville, saying, "Wow, the leftists are just as violent as the conservatives, or the right, whatever they're being called." And she got attacked for reporting from the ground something she observed. No, you may not report that.
Exactly. There's only one narrative that you're allowed to report. Left-wing violence doesn't happen, but this fantasy of right-wing Trump-inspired violence, that's just truth. That's taken as gospel. Even though, how long, every time you hear about a MAGA cap wearing person who assaults some Muslim woman and rips off her hijab, you start the clock and it's like three days later, and it's a fake hate crime. I mean, the incidences of fake hate crimes are far surpassing real hate crimes these days.
Except the real hate crimes against conservatives, which aren't acknowledged. And you're absolutely right, and it's terrifying what you said before. When you viciously attack, seriously, physically attack conservatives, you will be praised for it by people like Marco Rubio and Mitt Romney, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse, and it's actually a pretty scary time. I don't mean to be melodramatic. I don't go out. That's how I protect myself.
Well, you're kind of a high profile target, Ann. I can walk the street safely. I can see why you might have a problem.
Yeah, but Rachel Maddow doesn't.
No, she could go out. She could go out in Texas. She could go out in the reddest part of the country, and everybody would be fine.
Maxine Waters doesn't have a problem. Eric Swalwell. None of these people have a problem. There is consistent organized violence against conservatives. There has been for many years, but under Trump it has gotten so much worse and so much scarier. And to have swine like Mitt Romney and Marco Rubio saying, as they did for the original Charlottesville march, there is no comparison between the two groups. One group was fascist and the other group was anti-fascist. Yeah, okay, the people who say they're anti-fascist are weirdly doing the violence.
Yeah, no,
that's really going to make me feel great when I'm knocked out. Don't worry, they say they're doing it in the name of anti-fascism. Look, the anti-fascism, that means anyone they disagree with, they call a fascist. So it's just carte blanche for these thugs to go around beating up conservatives.
Not to mention, they had a sign up in Washington, D.C. that said, "It takes a bullet to bash a fash."
Yeah, fash defined as anyone we disagree with.
Exactly. So the anti-fascists are talking about how they need to shoot people who disagree with them politically, and then here's the chyron on CNN while they're devoting so much coverage to this, which Brian Stelter, the egghead, retweeted. Banner on CNN: anti-hate groups dramatically outnumber white supremacists in D.C. Anti-hate groups is how they describe people who are running around committing violence against journalists, against cops, and talking about how it takes a bullet to bash a fash.
Yes, and calling all cops planners. There was one, it was weird, I heard it when I first woke up on MSNBC, and then I couldn't find they quickly suppressed it, you never heard about it again, but there was a chant going around, something about putting piggies in their graves. It was definitely piggies about the cops.
Oh yeah, no, they hate cops.
Definitely a threat of death. But the signs, the chants, those were all carefully curated and left on the cutting room floor from the MSM. You could see it all over Twitter and various websites, which is, oh, that's right, why the left has to go after Twitter, Facebook, and the Internet. It's the one part of the world that they don't control. Oh, no, people can get the truth there. We've got to start throwing people off Twitter.
You know, speaking of chants, I thought the one that would really resonate with you, Ann Coulter, is no borders, no wall, no USA at all. We just played the audio of that chant that the Antifa goons were yelling. Unbelievable. No USA at all.
Yes, well, that's what they believe, and that's the position that has been endorsed by Mitt Romney and Marco Rubio. Do not forget that.
So speaking of stories that the mainstream media is trying to give a good leaving alone, how about this Muslim terror compound out in New Mexico? It seems like it would be significant that there was an Islamic terror cell operating in New Mexico that is linked to one of the imams. I guess the guy who is leading it is the son of an imam who's tied to the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. It's remarkable how this isn't getting any coverage.
That's where you always make your first mistake, Steve, because it was Muslim run. No, I mean, a training camp to stage mass school shootings, yeah, I think that's kind of newsworthy. What makes it fall off the newsworthy? Oh, it was Muslims. I've never seen the press so determined to report or not report a story based on the identity of the criminal and the victim.
Yeah, the guy's name was...
That's all that matters. That's what they care about. It reminds me of one of my friends at Yale Law School, and he was sitting on a jury one day. He's talking to one of his Yale Law School classmates, and he tells her he's sitting on a criminal jury, and she says to him, "Oh, well, I hope you're going to find him innocent." Not knowing none of the facts, and my friend said to her, "Oh, but you don't know all the facts. The defendant is black." And she said, "Oh, well, I really hope you find him innocent."
Yeah.
And then, "Oh, but it was a rape." "No, I hope you find him guilty." It has nothing to do with the facts. It's just, as you know, whom. We need to know who you are before we decide whether you've been raped.
Exactly. This is your brain on liberalism. And, you know, I know that this is a point that's been going around the internet on social media, but can you imagine if Siraj Ibn Wahhaj, the leader of this terrorist compound in New Mexico, can you imagine if he was carrying an NRA card? You think they get a little bit different coverage of that if he was an NRA member?
Right, or if he were one of Gavin McInnes's Proud Boys. I mean, that's sort of a frightening thing. I was annoyed with Gavin after the first Charlottesville, which he had nothing to do with, but he was just, terrified he'd be associated with it for some reason. I don't know why.
And come on, white. No one wants to be associated with white nationalism, and
no,
especially when Heather Heyer is killed in the incident.
What I'm saying is, why was he worried that he would be associated with it? So you're being like,
oh, I see. Okay, I see. I see what you're saying.
It would be associated with. Why should he be? He had no connection to it. So he starts posting all these things on his Twitter page that were just so, to use the kids' term, just so cucky and embarrassing. No, Gavin, we know you're not a racist. Please don't come out and say this. I started sending him penis enlargement ads. It was getting so embarrassing. But even with all of this conservative behavior, he got thrown off Twitter right before this thing on Saturday, which, again, he has nothing to do with. He was the founder of Vice, this totally hip magazine for all the young kids. He's rich. He's covered in tattoos. He's one of the funniest people I've ever met. He gets thrown off Twitter. They're coming for all of us, Steve.
Well, it's true. That back when the Alex Jones stuff was happening, the deplatforming of InfoWars, I told Howie that the left doesn't distinguish between Alex Jones and Ann Coulter and the Unite the Right rally. For them, it's just one big basket of deplorables.
Right, or Mitt Romney and Marco Rubio, so good luck to them with their cucking behavior.
All right, Ann, well, we got to leave it there. Thank you very much for being on the Howie Carr Show, and we've got an event coming up September 16th. Ann's going to be coming up to New Hampshire. It'll be the only event in the Granite State, and you can get tickets at howiecarrshow.com. Just click the banner at the top of the page. We're excited to have you up, Ann.
Good to talk to you. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks, Ann.